Today I'll be racing Scyther and Pinsir through Pokemon Yellow. It's my goal to find out which one of these two Pokemon I can beat the game with faster. In this video, I'll be playing through the game as I do in all my other challenges. One Pokemon for all battles, no items in battle, and without glitches. I'll continue to allow the badge boost glitch of course. Scyther and Pinsir are really incredible Pokemon with great stats, and I think that racing them will provide a more entertaining way to do solo challenges with these Pokemon. Just a quick note, I'm not a speedrunner, so please don't judge this video from that perspective. Before we get started, I want to make a few predictions. In the category of stats, both Pinsir and Scyther have a lot going for them. Scyther wins in terms of speed and critical hit chance, while Pinsir has an edge in terms of attack and raw offensive potential. On the learn set side of things, Pinsir starts out with an advantage as Vice Grip has a 15 power advantage over Scyther's quick attack. However, Scyther learns Slash significantly faster than Pinsir. Both of these Pokemon also have access to the extremely overpowered Swords Dance. From what I can see here, I think that Pinsir's higher attack and slightly better moveset is going to give it an easier time overall in this race. It also has a good answer for Ghost Pokemon, where Scyther will have to rely on Bide and Mimic until level 50 when it learns Wing Attack. What do you think? Which Pokemon do you think will have a better time in this challenge? Let's find out. Having the rival choose Vaporeon on his team would be the easiest. That means it would be ideal if I could lose the lab fight with both Scyther and Pinsir. However, if I reset to do a fight again, the clock will keep ticking, so I'll need to make a decision very quickly if I think it's possible or not. Scyther would have to get some seriously bad luck to not win this fight. I only have Quick Attack, so I'm just going to move on immediately. I think for Scyther, Jolteon will be the stronger Pokemon on the rival's team, so that means I'll try and make the rival pick Flareon. Again, I'm going for speed in this run, not for difficulty. In the forest, I train as much as is possible on my regular route. Brock is going to be tough to beat with only Quick Attack. I'm going to level up until level 17 in order to learn Leer. This will be very helpful to invalidate Onyx's Bide. At level 17, I try Brock for the first time. I immediately land a critical hit and do a lot of damage to Geodude. Making the luck even better, Geodude misses its first two attacks. I knock it out after only losing 3 hit points. Onyx comes out and it uses Screech into Bide, giving me an opportunity to set up some Leers. After getting off 3 Leers, my quick attacks are dealing a lot of damage. Onyx goes down and I finish the fight at 19 minutes and 21 seconds. The completion time for each leg of the race will be determined when the Pokemon defeats the gym leader and the text saying that I've defeated the leader shows up. Most of this time for Scyther early on was taken up training in Viridian Forest so that I was able to take Brock out. Now let's see how Pinsir does at this stage of the game. It doesn't make sense to try and lose the lab fight because I'm just dealing too much damage to the Eevee. Unlike Scyther, Pinsir doesn't have the flying type, so I think the second easiest Pokemon for the rival to have will be Jolteon. I need to beat him at the optional location as well to make that happen. I train up a little bit and then sweep through his 2 team members with ease. Pinsir is really powerful. In Viridian Forest, I train up a little bit, but this time only to level 15. I think I can get past Brock at a lower level with Pinsir. Against Brock, I only have Vice Grip. It does decent damage to Geodude the first turn, and then I land a critical hit the second turn. After Geodude faints, Onyx is the Pokemon I'm really scared of. Bide could really mess me up. I get the Onyx down into mid-orange health when it uses its first Bide. Luckily for me, the very next turn I land a critical hit, taking the Onyx into KO range. So I've done it. I beat Brock. Here's the times so far and how they stack up. As I thought, Pinsir comes out on top at this point in the game. However, Scyther is at a higher level, so perhaps it can gain back some ground in the next leg of the race. With Scyther, I get a bit rebellious and grab the Dome Fossil. After that, I face the rival on Nugget Bridge. Spearow is fairly easy to get past, but Sandshrew tanks my quick attacks very well. Luckily in this fight, it doesn't constantly spam Sand Attack, and I can eventually take the victory. The Sand Attack spam actually happened in my first fight versus him, and caused Scyther to lose a bit of time. After completing Nugget Bridge, I head back to Cerulean to take Misty on. Staryu comes out first and takes a massive hit from a critical hit quick attack. Staryu deals 10 damage to me before going down. Starmie is next. I get another critical hit against it first turn and it goes for Harden. Scyther's speed and critical hit chance is really helping out right now. Starmie hits us with Water Gun and it does a lot of damage. I'm just glad that wasn't a Bubble Beam. Luckily I'm able to knock it out before it gets too many more attacks off, and I take the victory. Pinsir absolutely destroys the trainers before Mount Moon at a faster pace than Scyther, and then I beat the nerd and grab the Helix Fossil. The rival on Nugget Bridge is easier with Pinsir. Vice Grip does more damage than Quick Attack, and we have a higher attack stat. I can really feel it at this point in the game. One thing that slows Pinsir down slightly in this leg of the race is that I have to grab the TM for Seismic Toss. I know that I learned this through level up anyways, but if I delete it after Pokemon Tower, I can always teach it back again just before Agatha. In order to grab it, I have to fight one extra trainer. Misty opens with Staryu, and for some reason my footage right now is just awful. It's so choppy and terrible. I don't really know what happened. Vice Grip takes Staryu down in 2 turns. It immediately gets an X Defend, which is going to make it harder for Pinsir to deal damage to it. Second turn, it hardens up, and then third turn it goes for Bubble Beam, and does around 1/3 damage to me. For whatever reason, it just decides to spam Harden after that and let me walk all over it. This fight would have been harder if it just stayed in Bubble Beam once it started using it. Here's how the second gym leg of the race stacks up. Pinsir is still ahead, but the gap has narrowed. Pinsir grabs Body Slam and Rest on the SSN. Body Slam is going to be my go-to normal move for this run. The rival opens with Spearow, and it gets knocked out right away. Rattata also faints in a single hit. Sandshrew, as always, causes a bit of problems and doesn't go down in a single hit. But the glory of Body Slam presents itself and it gets paralyzed. Eevee is also a single hit. In Surge's gym, the trash can puzzle takes me 1 minute and 7 seconds. After completing this run, I'm going to go research exactly how this thing works and try and cut time off of it for future runs. Against Surge, Pinsir isn't weak, but Thunderbolt still deals an incredible amount of damage. On the second turn, I miss my Body Slam, and Raichu misses its Growl. When I finally land Body Slam on turn 3, I get a critical hit and take Raichu down in 1 hit. Well, that was easier than I expected. Scyther can't learn Body Slam, so Quick Attack is still my only attack. Spearow goes down in 2 turns, and Rattata in 1 hit. After that, the issue here is Sandshrew. It takes significant time to knock it out. Because I can't knock it out fast enough, Sandshrew lands Sand Attack 3 times in a row. Scyther is able to eventually knock the Sandshrew out, but after that Eevee continues the nightmare. It lands Growl after Growl and even additional Sand Attacks, preventing Scyther from being able to take it down. In retrospect, I probably should have reset earlier and just started the fight fresh. In the end, I'm not able to win the first fight, and I need to take another attempt. The second attempt goes much better, and I avoid the insane Sand Attack spam from Sandshrew. Luckily in Surge's gym, the first 2 trash cans I click on are the 2 that I need to open the doors. That couldn't have been any faster. I open with Quick Attack, dealing roughly 1/4 damage to Raichu. It retaliates with Mega Punch, hitting me for around 1/4 damage as well. Second turn, I land another Quick Attack, and he lands a Growl. Raichu continues to spam Growl until it has a tiny sliver of health left. It finally switches into Mega Punch, taking me down into orange health. However, it's too little too late, and I knock the Raichu out, winning the Thunder Badge. I'm so thankful that Scyther got through the trash can puzzle and Surge on my first attempt. Right now, Pinsir has a 1 minute and 30-second lead. This is pretty close. Unfortunately, things are probably going to get a bit harder in this next leg of the race. Pinsir's health isn't in great shape when I arrive at the hiker with the self-destructing team. The first Geodude uses Tackle, allowing Seismic Toss to take it out in 2 turns. So far so good. I use Seismic Toss and the second Geodude self-destructs. I survive with 16 hit points remaining. Graveler uses Defense Curl on its first turn, and it looks like I'll need 3 attacks to knock it out. Second turn, it misses Rock Throw, and I made it through the fight on the first attempt. I was pretty sure this wasn't going to happen. The scary part of this fight is that I forgot to buy potions, so now I have to fight the final lass in the cave with only 16 hit points remaining. Luckily, the Pidgey doesn't use Quick Attack, and I can move on to Celadon. There I complete all my regular errands. After that, Giovanni is next. I have access to Seismic Toss, which gives me a way to deal consistent damage to the rock Pokemon. I could have taught Pinsir submission for this fight, but I really dislike how low its accuracy is and the fact that it has recoil damage. I'll just stick with Seismic Toss for now. Erica sends out Tangela first. Because of my typing, it's going to be hard for it to deal damage to Pinsir. Pinsir takes around 3 turns to knock Tangela out. My first Body Slam against Weepinbell paralyzes it. Due to this, it can't move for its turn, and then I knock it out the very next turn. Gloom lands an Acid, which is super effective in this generation. It doesn't deal very much damage though. I knock it out next turn. Erica really wasn't that hard for Pinsir. Now it's time for Scyther. I have to say I'm terrified for the self-destruct hiker. I learned Slash before the fight, but I'm not sure that that's going to change the fight's outcome. The hiker sends out his first Geodude, and you see that I also forget potions on this run. That's likely to punish Scyther a lot more than it punished Pinsir. The first Geodude takes more than half health damage from Slash on my first turn. Alright, with that information I know that this fight is going to be possible. The first Geodude self-destructs and doesn't knock me out. I take the second one down over 2 turns. Then Graveler comes out and immediately self-destructs, knocking me out. On my second fight, I get back to the Graveler with 57 hit points remaining. It wastes its first turn with Defense Curl. Remember, my critical hits will ignore this stat change entirely. Second turn, it lands a Rock Throw. I had an Adrenaline hit when this happened. Luckily, Scyther lives through it with 10 hit points. My Retaliatory Slash knocks it out. So that was a lot easier than I expected. The Quick Attack Pidgey on the final Lasses team doesn't end up using Quick Attack, instead it goes down to a single slash. I'm really glad that Scyther didn't get held up here as much as I expected. Giovanni opens with Onyx. I lost my first fight against him, so this is my second attempt. Onyx lands a Rock Throw on his final turn, taking me down to 44 hit points. That's enough health in order to live through Rhyhorn's horn attacks. I hit Persian into red health with Slash, and it retaliates with a Payday that doesn't quite knock me out. At this point, I wish Scyther had learned a flying type move. It would be really helpful against Erica. Either way, she isn't an issue. Her only move that is super effective against me is the low power Acid. I was expecting Pinsir to have a greater lead after this section of the game. When I first looked at their movesets, I figured this would be a big sticking point for Scyther, but I underestimated the power of Slash and Generation 1 critical hits. Both Scyther and Pinsir are heading to Koga next. I have to progress past Pokemon Tower in order to do this. For Pinsir, this section of the game isn't too bad. Seismic Toss allows me to get past the Channeler with only a few minor annoyances. In addition to this, I'll take care of the Safari Zone and a bit of training because the level curve is starting to catch up with me. I did think Pinsir might have a chance against Koga because my attack stat is so high. That turns out to not be the case. Instead, I'm going to go beat Sylph now. This would be almost impossible with my current moveset, but inside the building, I can pick up the TM for Swords Dance. While I learn this move through Level Up, I can teach it with the TM right now and get it earlier, allowing me to skip a decent amount of grinding. The rival fight here is brought to you by the power of Swords Dance. Sandslash will constantly use Poison Sting because I'm a bug type. That allows me to set up 3 turns of Swords Dance, maxing out my attack stat. Sandslash, Ninetales, and Cloyster are easy one-hits with Body Slam at this point. However, Kadabra outspeeds me and lands a decent Psybeam before going down. Up next is Jolteon. I'm starting to wonder if perhaps Flareon would have been the easier choice. Jolteon outspeeds me with Thundershock. Luckily, I barely survive with 12 hit points, and I can knock it out with Body Slam the next turn. Giovanni is a pushover. Swords Dance is going to make most of the fights for the rest of the game significantly easier. Koga is the same story. I can now set up 3 turns of Swords Dance against the first Venonat. This allows me to sweep through the rest of his team with ease. Now it's time for the interesting side of this leg of the race. Scyther has a problem. Pokemon Tower is next, and we don't have a move that can hit Ghost Pokemon. To solve this problem, I'm going to have to use Bide. Because of the Rocket Grunt blocking the Mimic Girl's house in Saffron, Mimic is not going to be an option before I obtain the Pokeflute. Because I have to use Bide, this part of the game has the potential to slow Scyther down a lot. The problem here is the status conditions that the Ghastly can dish out. If I hit myself in confusion or are paralyzed for a turn while Bide is active, it gets cancelled. Due to this, these fights are wildly erratic in terms of how long they will take. Eventually I make it past all the ghosts, and I move on to Sylph immediately. Because Scyther learns Swords Dance by level up at level 35, my intent was always to simply train at this stage of the game, get Swords Dance, and beat Sylph. Now, for Swords Dance to work, I cannot land a critical hit, and Scyther has a 100% chance to crit with Slash, so I'll need another move. I ended up picking Swift because it doesn't have any recoil damage. With these two moveset adjustments, I can get past the rival fight at Sylph. Despite not one-hitting all of his Pokemon, I do make it through the fight in decent time. My process for the creation of this video is I play each leg of the race one at a time. The Pokemon that I play through the next leg of the race with first is the Pokemon that currently is winning the race. That means that anything I learn can be applied to the second run in order to help that Pokemon catch up. So as I play through this portion of the game with Scyther, I can see that I'm making decent time against Pinsir. I honestly thought that I would be losing time significantly at this stage of the game. For this reason, I push through Giovanni and make my way to Koga as fast as possible. To do this, I skip all the trainers on Cycling Road. Alright, it's Koga time. Against the first Venonat, I avoid poison and knock it out second turn. The second Venonat lands poison before going down. On the third Venonat, I tank my first Psychic, and that lets me realize that I'm going to defeat Koga on my first attempt. So Scyther honestly did a great job on this leg of the race. I'm surprised that the ghosts didn't delay us more. Now I'm starting to see that it might be possible to catch up to Pinsir. The Sabrina fight starts with Pinsir dodging Abra's first flash and then knocking it out with a single body slam. I'm fairly sure that I can get through this fight on the back of Pinsir's high attack stat. Kadabra outspeeds me and lands a massive Psychic. Well, maybe that's going to take a couple tries after all. I do get some luck and move on to the Alakazam fight, but it KOs me and I have to try again. In my second fight with Sabrina, Abra lands a flash right away. In this fight, I set up 2 turns of Swords Dance to ensure that I can one-shot the Alakazam. Luckily, the second turn, Abra gets an X defend and doesn't lower my accuracy again. Pinsir KOs the Abra easily with Body Slam and Kadabra comes out. Here, my Body Slam misses and Kadabra gets an X defend. That's not the worst turn I could have had. However, next turn things get worse. Kadabra lands a Kinesis, further lowering my accuracy, and my Body Slam misses again. Is this going to be the spot that Pinsir gets stuck? A turn goes by where we both do nothing, and then Kadabra uses Psywave, dealing a pathetic 2 damage. Finally, I land Body Slam and the Kadabra goes down. Okay, Pinsir's crossed. Can we land a Body Slam against Alakazam? I outspeed and I land it first turn, knocking the Alakazam out. Scyther actually handles this fight like a champ. It outspeeds Abra, knocking it out in one hit. Next, Kadabra comes out, and it gets outsped and KO'd immediately as well. Perhaps I'll outspeed the Alakazam? It gets an X defend, which is useless because of my critical hits, and then I take it down to orange health. Because it was damaged, Alakazam uses Recover, and allows me to knock it out the next turn. Alright Scyther, I believe that you can make up some time here. I run into some issues with the Pinsir run on Cinnabar Island and waste about a minute of time depositing items in the PC and running back and forth between the Pokemart. Whoops. To answer the earlier question of would Sabrina be the first place that Pinsir gets stuck? No, but Blaine is. Because Pinsir is a bug type with fairly low special, the fire moves destroy it in a single hit. I tried this fight a few times and it just isn't working. Time to train. I spend a decent amount of time training Pinsir to get it to level 48. Now Blaine is more manageable. It still takes several fights to get the outcome I need. I set up twice with Swords Dance on Ninetales and cross my fingers that it won't land 2 flamethrowers. From there, I can sweep both Ninetales and Rapidash with ease, leading to the Arcanine fight. My first Body Slam against Arcanine unfortunately gets a critical hit, invalidating all of my setup. Luckily, Arcanine goes for Reflect, giving me one more turn to finish it off. Now the question is, will Scyther face the same issues against Blaine that Pinsir did? With Scyther, there is a similar issue. Blaine's fire moves deal massive damage. I can take all his Pokemon out in 2 hits with my crits. Setting up here might be a good idea if I went back and grabbed Double Edge, but for now I think I can actually brute force my way through this fight if I attempt it several times. Ninetales comes out, and I need to cross my fingers that it lands a non-damage dealing move. In this case, it confuses me. I snap out of Confusion immediately against Rapidash and tank a Stomp. Luckily it didn't use Fire Spin. Arcanine comes out and I'm almost sure it will use Reflect first turn. It does, and I deal damage to it, indicating that it will take 3 turns instead of 2 to knock it out. On its second turn, it uses Takedown, which I survive, allowing me to defeat Blaine. After these last 2 gym battles, Scyther has now actually taken the lead by less than a minute. This bodes well going into the Giovanni fight. Here, Scyther's flying type is going to be both a curse and a blessing. It will make the fight against Dugtrio incredibly easy, but Rhydon is going to be a nightmare. Rock Slide is going to deal 4 times damage, and I don't have access to a single special move. Now, I couldn't use Mimic before, but I can use it now. If I mimic Dugtrio's Earthquake, I can use this super effective move against both the Nidos and Rhydon. My critical hit Slash takes the Dugtrio down in a single hit. I take the Persian down in 2 turns without taking any damage. Against Nidoqueen, I use Earthquake, and it doesn't knock it out in a single turn. It goes for Thunder, taking me down into orange health. I'm gonna need some Giovanni Guard Spec luck here. Nidoking also goes for Thunder, but misses, giving me 1 part of the luck required to take the victory here. I hit Rhydon with Earthquake, and I get a critical hit, but it isn't quite enough to knock it out. Moment of truth. Guard Spec. Scyther did it on the second fight with Giovanni. With Pinsir, I set up for this fight differently. I grab Submission, which will help against Rhydon. Here I take Dugtrio out as soon as possible. I don't want it using Fissure against me. Against Persian, I set up. It lands a good slash and then hits Fury Swipes, taking me down to 1 hit point. I get a KO of it next turn and move on to the Nidos. With my absolutely insane attack, I can take them both down in a single hit. Rhydon is last. Submission won't work because it deals recoil damage, and despite the fact that I have other Pokemon on my team for HMs, I consider it a blackout and a reset if Pinsir faints. Body Slam does just over 1/3 damage. More like 2/5 if we're being really specific. Yikes. However, it paralyzes Rhydon. Giovanni then uses a Guard Spec first turn, which gives me at least 1 more turn. On the next turn, Rhydon is paralyzed and I take the victory. Again, only with 2 fights. The rival before the league is no issue for Pinsir. Beyond that, the champion will be easy as well. This is because Sandslash provides the perfect opportunity to set up Swords Dance before sweeping the entire team. The only Pokemon that I need to be careful of are the Abraline and Jolteon because of their speed. Now after this fight, I'm going to keep playing and record the time when Pinsir is ready to go for the league. After 1 fight with the rival, I see how this fight is going to go for Scyther. I'm not interested in wasting any additional time, so I reset and use my rare candies. With the rare candies used, this fight still needs some finesse. Set up Swords Dance against the Sandslash and then knock it out. After that is completed, the Execute gives me a chance to heal before the hard portion of the fight. Cloyster will get off 1 Aurora Beam against me before I take it down. Now, Magneton is his true MVP. I can't one-hit it with a critical hit Slash, so I use a Wing Attack, which is not very effective, but has the power-ups from my Swords Dance. Unfortunately, this doesn't get the job done and it paralyzes me. I take it out the next turn and Kadabra comes out. Because I'm a bug type, it seems to shy away from using psychic type moves. For this reason, I can rest up and go into the Flareon fight a bit healthier. Against Flareon, I get a Wing Attack off after it misses Smog and I take it down in 1 hit. Honestly, I think Pinsir is better equipped for the league. I wouldn't be surprised if it completely crushes Scyther from here on out. So let's see how Pinsir did in the league. Against Lorelei, the strategy for Pinsir is obvious. Set up 3 Swords Dances against Dugong and then sweep with Body Slam. Her Pokemon can't deal much damage to Pinsir if they actually land a hit, and Body Slam after 3 Swords Dances is capable of one-hitting everything. I'm not sure about Cloyster because I got a critical hit against it and this was my first fight. Now, I'm not going to say that Bruno was hard. He wasn't. He was just annoying. I wanted to avoid recoil damage at the Onyx, so I didn't use Submission. Honestly, I should have just used it because I would have been able to get through the fight faster. By the time I reach the second Onyx, I've figured that out and I take it out in short order. Next is Agatha, and she was the one trainer I was most scared for when examining Pinsir's moveset initially. To prepare for this battle, I use the TM to teach Pinsir Seismic Toss again. I teach it Rest, and I use my remaining rare candies. These will allow me to take more damage, as well as deal more damage with Seismic Toss. She opens with Gengar, and from my very first hit with Seismic Toss, I get an idea of how this fight is gonna go. It's gonna go very well for Pinsir. Watch as this terrifying beetle shreds through her Pokemon. Once I get to Arbok, I rest up so that I can enter the final Gengar fight with good health. It does no Psychic, and I want to be a bit careful. I end up tanking the Psychic very well and knocking the Gengar out in short order. Lance opens with Gyarados. Because I doubt it can deal massive damage to Pinsir, I begin to set up Swords Dance right away. When I'm actually ready to attack, I get a critical hit and fail to take the Gyarados down. Lovely timing. From there, the two Dragonairs are one-hits by Pinsir, leading to Aerodactyl. It outspeeds me and lands a super effective wing attack, taking me to 24 health. This is the closest the entire league has pushed Pinsir. Body Slam retaliates, surprisingly knocking the Aerodactyl out in a single turn. It also feints the Dragonite in a single turn. As before, I can set up Swords Dance against the champion and then steamroll through his team. The only thing I'm worried about is his Jolteon's speed. If it can outspeed me and land a Thunder, I might go down. After sweeping through his entire team, Jolteon comes out and uses Quick Attack. So Pinsir did it. Honestly, this is an incredible time. When I think about Generation 1, I don't think of Pinsir being this strong, but it really proved itself here. So, does Scyther even stand a chance of beating this time? Lorelei sends out Dugong, and I want to set up as much as possible against it. Since it uses Rest, this gives me an opportunity to set up all three Swords Dances. I go for Wing Attack, because Slash will negate my setup, and Dugong goes down. So far, so good. Next is Cloyster. I land another Wing Attack, but it doesn't take it down. Cloyster's Ice Beam lands and knocks Scyther out. I tried this fight many times, but I couldn't get past Cloyster. So unfortunately at this point, Scyther has lost the race. And we can announce that we have a winner. The winner is Pinsir. If that was all you're here for, I'll see you in my next challenge. But if you'd like to see how I ended up beating the league with Scyther, stick around. In order to beat the league, I level Scyther up to level 65. I open with one turn of Slash, which will either trigger a potion from Lorelei or a rest. Either way, that gives me a good path into Swords Dance for several turns without taking damage. After I'm all set up, I land a Wing Attack and knock the Dugong out. Surprisingly, even with 6 level increases, Cloyster is still not going down in a single hit. Luckily this time, Lorelei heals it right away because I'm dealing enough damage. This makes it a freebie and I move on to Slowbro. Against it, I get a critical hit and deal pathetic amounts of damage. With fast Pokemon who require setup, critical hits are absolutely garbage in this generation. Jinx is frail and only takes a single hit from Scyther, and Lapras is also a one-hit. Bruno is next. His Onyx are a big waste of time. I don't really need to set up against them because the rest of his team is incredibly easy for Scyther to take out with Wing Attack. Maybe if I really wanted to min-max this fight, I'd figure out if 3 turns of Swords Dance would eliminate enough turns later on to save time. For now, this was my first fight, and it was good enough. Gengar comes out first for Agatha, and I land an absolutely massive critical hit Wing Attack. This triggers a Super Potion, and my second turn of Wing Attack feints the Gengar. I did not expect this. Slash deals massive damage to Golbat, and it runs away as Agatha swaps in Haunter instead. My Wing Attack also triggers a potion on Haunter, making this fight incredibly easy. Golbat comes out, and I knock it out. Then Arbok feints from a single Slash, and I've made it to the final Gengar. 3 Wing Attacks later, and it's down. I beat Agatha without taking any damage. This honestly has to be one of the easiest Agatha fights I've ever had. You're a winner in my heart, Scyther. Lance makes things hard. I can reliably take Gyarados out with 2 hits and then KO the 2 Dragonairs with Slash. Sometimes the Dragonairs are ranges, but in those cases, Lance uses a Hyper Potion, giving me an extra turn to try my luck again. I tried setting up against Gyarados, and it ends up feeling a tiny bit less reliable than just using Slash. Aerodactyl, as usual, is where things get hard. Slash does 1/3 damage to it, and it flies up in the sky in response. I accidentally used a Slash here. I should have switched into Sword Stance. I know Wing Attack can't KO me in a single turn, so I set up, and from here, I'll need to rest in order to regain lost health. This is fairly reliable because the only sequence of events that ruins Scyther's day are 2 critical hits in a row from Aerodactyl. In this fight, luck goes my way. Aerodactyl misses a fly, and I knock it out with Wing Attack. Dragonite is last. Its powerful special moves take me down in 1 hit. I am hoping it will use Blizzard and miss, allowing me to land 2 moves in a row. Turns out that I take it down into red health with 1 Wing Attack, and Lance uses a Hyper Potion. My next attack with Wing Attack knocks it out. I genuinely feel that in Generation 1, there's a glitch that lowers a Pokemon's defense when the AI uses a potion on it. It always just seems easier the second time you hit something. It's champion time. I set up against Sandslash so that I'm prepared for the rest of his team. It still takes 2 hits to knock it out, and Slash does less damage than Wing Attack after the setup. Alakazam is an easy 1-hit. At Executor, I would usually heal up, but this time I decide to keep my poison because I didn't want Magneton to use Thunder Wave on me. If it sets up Thunder Wave, it gets a second turn where it will KO me with Thunderbolt. For whatever reason, Slash feints the Magneton on my first turn. I played this fight a bunch before this attempt, and this was the first time that I one-hit it. Cloyster is next. I don't knock it out in a single turn, and Ice Beam lands, taking me all the way down to 24 health. Because of how much Ice Beam does, I can't heal in this fight, so I attack and cross my fingers that I can defeat Flareon in a single turn. Against Flareon, I use Wing Attack and I pray that I don't get a critical hit. I don't, and Flareon goes down in a single hit. So Scyther did it as well. I think Pinsir won for several reasons. It's able to set up more reliably due to its lower speed. In Generation 1, lower speed actually benefits Pinsir. Funny. Its moveset is significantly better than Scyther's in this generation. By the way, Scyther's moveset is even worse in Red and Blue. It doesn't learn Wing Attack. And finally, Pinsir lacks the flying type, which means it doesn't have as many weaknesses as Scyther. Overall, Pinsir just feels more tanky, and I was always less scared when taking damage with it. I hope you've enjoyed this race. If you're still here, you're incredible. If you want to support my channel, I've left a couple Amazon links in the description. If you click on one of those, I'll earn a small commission if you buy something on Amazon. It doesn't even need to be one of the products I've recommended. If you need something off Amazon, consider supporting me the next time you shop. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.